Here is James Cameron.
You never really get an opportunity. You take an opportunity. If you're going to do something, you have to do it all the way, and you have to just put it before all other things.
I don't know about you, but I'm having a really great time.
Welcome, everybody, back to James Cameron 101. I'm your host, Eddie Green. Today, we are celebrating True Lies, which is entering its 32nd anniversary this year. Insane to think. And we have two currently, hopefully three. The plan was three talents that worked on the film directly. And we're going to talk to them, celebrate, and just have a really good time today. So the two I have with me currently, we have the unit production manager, one of the unit production managers on True Lies, and we have the makeup department head on True Lies as well. And hopefully we're going to be getting the weapons master, Harry Liu, to join as well. Fingers crossed. But we'll bring them in one at a time, and we're just going to get rocking and rolling. So first up is no stranger to this podcast. He's been on so many things I've done, and we love to have him back. It's Jeff Don.
Hello, Eddie. It's good to be back.
Yes, not talking Terminator for a change.
Yeah, well, all things Arnold and James Cameron.
Yes. So I'm excited to have you here, and we're going to be welcoming a first-timer to the podcast, and I wanted to make sure I got his name pronunciation right. We were having a laugh back and forth here. So it is Scott Thaler is joining us here. Scott, how are you?
Hey, good. I'm great, Eddie. How are you? Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Scott? I can't see you very well because you're heavily backlit.
I know. Here I can try to get a little brighter light on me. And I know
I'm making up for it by being in the sun.
I was trying to see if I had any of my options that could brighten me up for you, but they're really not brightening me. They're just brightening the world. So there you go.
Your personality will have to brighten us up.
We'll have to do it on our own. There you go. I don't have a good front light setup. The good news is I'm a production manager, and I'm not a gaffer or key grip or artistic person of your nature. You would know which way Arnold will look best in the light. And I'm like, I'm always in the shadows, so it doesn't work.
Well, I remember somebody taking over as our first AD on True Lies for a few days.
Oh, well, I did.
That was
first.
You, buddy. You had to do it, and you did a good job.
Yeah, that was me. That was Life of Pi. That was Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue. That was pretty impressive. That was exciting.
So the way I kind of want to structure this, it's pretty loose. We're just going to have a good chat back and forth, but really I just want to highlight each one of you individually and tell the audience that's watching and listening to this how True Lies entered your life. Jeff, I have an idea of how it entered your life. Scott, not as much for you. So we'll start with Jeff. How did True Lies come into your life?
Well, I had started off on Terminator 1 with Arnold and Jim.
Yep.
And, Terminator, I ended up doing 19, 20 films with Arnold and several with Jim. So True Lies was about my third or fourth with Jim and probably my seventh or eighth with Arnold. So it was kind of like a given that I was going to end up running the department and doing the makeup because they both, the most powerful two, gorillas in the room said, Jeff Don.
Jeff Don. Incredible. Now, Scott, how did True Lies end up in your lap?
True Lies is a short, long story. Is that after Terminator 2, which my wife produced, so Jeff certainly knows Stephanie, and we're still married. So all of that happened with all the stuff Jeff just talked about happened with Jim and Arnold and Stephanie. So Stephanie was producing Terminator 2, and when Terminator 2 was over, Jim had another project that he wanted to do. And that project fell apart at the last minute. And out of his desk drawer came this little scriptment, like a 50-page treatment, almost the length of a movie. And it was called True Lies. And it was really Jim's take on the story that you now know to be True Lies decades later. And because my wife was the producer, from Terminator 2 and also the producer on his small film that he was going to do in the middle of that. Russ Carpenter, the cinematographer, myself, the production manager, and a half a dozen other guys were brought in on the small film. And when it rolled up to the big film, we were just all, we'll say, in the right place at the wrong time, jokingly, but we were in the right place at the right time. And we all rolled on to True Lies. And that became our next, over a year and a half's work of development, production, and shooting of True Lies.
So this was all in '93, right? Because the film comes out in '94.
Took more than a year. I had 2 birthdays and went completely gray. I have a driver's license from when I started on the movie, and so there's no lying. And I have my driver's license from when I ended the movie, because it was the next year getting a new driver's license, and it was completely gray. So yeah, that was working for my wife and working for Jim Cameron, and Jeff can tell you about it because it was really impressive. We lost an AD at the last minute before we left LA. His wife got sick, and the studio was very supportive at the time. John Landau, who just passed away, who was Jim's producer for many years after the film. But John Landau said to Michael, go take care of your wife. We'll take care of the movie. And we were in LA. We were just about getting ready to pack up and leave for Washington. We were doing a scene at the Hanson Dam, and Michael couldn't make it. And I started as the first AD that night. And that's the night when we have a pair of pants that get peed in, as I remember. And then we jump in the van, we leave. And we're really, the joke is we were leaving that scene and leaving to go and catch airplanes like the next day to head to Washington to start the Washington shoot, which had many, many, many moving parts. Horses over limousines, horses through the Washington Fountain and the memorial, horses running around with Zelko, who fell up. But I was the AD for the first couple of days in that scenario because I was the production manager. We had no AD. We had to keep moving. It was like Friday night, who's coming in? Nobody wanted to take on a 100-day schedule with zero prep and have never read a script. So all the big dogs in LA, the famous, Sardi, all the names you would know as feature film first ADs were like, no, thank you, not interested. So Jim said, well, Scott worked with me on a television commercial between Terminator 2 and True Lies. Why doesn't he just roll into this until we get someone? Now, until we get someone could have been 2 days. It turned out to be many weeks that I was the first AD, which went from LA to DC. And Jeff will remember, that's why he was remembering, there was a scene in Washington where Arnold punches his hand through the glass of the van when Tom Arnold is reading him a transcription about Jamie Lee corresponding with the spy at the time. And Arnold gets very upset because he thinks his wife's having an affair. And that was pretty much the night that Jim and I sort of had it out with too many trucks, too much crew, too much craziness. And for the first time after many weeks, I stood my ground. And by standing my ground, Jeff remembers it, as does the whole 400 people on the crew. Go, wow. And Jim and I became really good friends. And to this day, we're still friends because I stood my ground in that situation. It was a tough scenario. And then Aldrich Porter came in and ultimately took over Miami and the rooftop. I jokingly say, well, it was just the whole show was getting easy after the horses and the stuns, the cars. And I had lived through all of that. And then Aldrich comes in and he does like 30 days on the rooftop of a building where he's sitting up there with the Harrier and I'm back in the office signing purchase orders. So it was sort of a good joke there.
I want to pause us there because I do see Harry. Harry, I can see you backstage. He has joined. Are you good to go, Harry? Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Sweet. So we're going to bring him in here as well. We haven't done a mic check on him, so this part I'm probably going to edit out. It might, I don't know how the audio is going to sound. So, but we'll welcome to the podcast for the first time, along with Scott. Harry
Hello,
Lou.
everyone.
Hey, Harry Lou.
Hello.
Hey, Harry.
Time flies.
Long time.
Yep.
So, Harry, I want to quickly ask you, how did True Lies come into your life? I asked Jeff and I asked Scott, how did True Lies end up in your lap?
Well, Jim, we did a show and tell in the shop, Stanbridge Gun Rentals, and Jim had a lot of ideas, and I was able to answer in his technical fashion and mechanical fashion. So we kind of fell into the gears together.
But did you, because this was the first time you were, or no, it was Terminator 2 was your first time with Jim.
Terminator, yeah, T2.
So it was just sort of, you had a good collaboration there, and then you just carried over to True Lies.
Indeed. Jim's idea with the shotgun, he wants to do a certain thing which is not in the original design, and brainstorming and figure out how to make it spiral, turn, rotate, all this action that he wants Arnold to do. And he wants able to Robert Patrick to do a certain things that actually made it even better yet. And so the miniguns and grenade launcher and the shotgun for Linda as well. So it was a lot of green juice and gray hair and losing sleep. But I did it. We did it with everyone's help.
Yeah.
When
Wow.
Harry mentioned, Eddie, when Harry just mentioned gray hair, that's Harry, you came in a second after I was just describing how I went from black hair to gray hair. And he's also talking more about the level of ask that he had on his shoulders for T2. But in True Lies, we had things like the suicide pistol and stuff like that that Jamie Lee has to shoot. I think it was Tia Carrere.
Oh, that's right. Inside the limousine.
And Harry had to invent on a minute's notice something that he had done before, but he had to come up with a pistol that would not fire the blank or anything in the direction person, because they were just so close to each other. It couldn't be done. So we called it the suicide pistol, and it was
right.
It was beautiful.
You have great memory, sir.
You're remembering so many details that when I hear them, I remember them. But it's like, God, how can you remember after 32 years?
I have to tell you, Jeff, I cheated. I really cheated. I got a phone call about 3 weeks ago. Eddie called me to do this, and I sort of said, no, I'm really not interested. And then once I said yes to Eddie, the floodgates opened, and I got an on-camera call from a company in Burbank that was doing a True Lies piece. So they sent a camera woman up here to our house who had me in the living room for about 3.5 hours, remembering the finest details. So I guess I sort of cheated.
That's funny. That's
fresh in my mind.
That's the same company that when I was down in LA a few weeks ago, I spent 2 days in their offices doing answering questions for several Arnold movies, including True Lies. So I too am fresh from just watching the movie and looking at some of the trivia.
Incredible. I am honored at my age back then, working with all you gentlemen, talented and best. You guys are the best in your craft. You said, how do I remember? I was having ulcer. I was bleeding in the heart. How am I going to deliver this? And working 7 days by maybe about 110, 115 hours a week, getting done, and we made it. And it's
you did a great
it's a
job.
group effort. It's a group effort. And the effects guys, visual effects back then was kind of rudimentary, I guess, in between analog and digital. But we did it, and looks great. And Robert Patrick was in the best shape of his life. And I still remember fitting a police belt on him. I said, that was the waist I had back in high school.
Well,
yeah, he was pretty ripped.
Well, that's Terminator 2. And so then, of course, you go to True Lies. And is there a specific memory? I want to start with Harry, and then we'll go around. Is there a specific memory, something that is really special that that you're just suddenly remembering that you want to share?
Multiple fronts. Day one, we're in Santa Clarita studio, and we're doing the bathroom sequence. And Jim told the camera department, how many cameras do you have? They said, we have 16. He said, I want all 16 lined up, everybody work on them, checking the lens and checking everything. Don't be just sitting in the box. I said, boy, he is Jim, the way how I remember after, 4 years. And what else was there? Jamie Lee came on and doing the dance. She was great, fantastic. And then I got kind of jealous a little bit personally. I don't know if it's proper to say or not. There was this gray-haired gentlemen. They were hugging close. They're walking together. They're laughing. I'm like, who is this person? Then one day I rushed onto the stage, and he was on his way out, and all of a sudden the spark in his eyes. Shame on me. That's his dad, Tony Curtis. that was
Wow.
the moment I remember. And then Jim came up to me and said, "Hey, we're gonna go to Key West. I want to tumble a gun, any gun that comes down the stair, and that I wanted to fire. I wanted to fire out of sync. I wanted to do all the crazy stuff without anybody touching it. No cable, no nothing. I'm like, hmm." And I turned the butt stock, collapsible stock, into the trigger mechanism. So as it tumbled down, that's what triggered the gunfire. We did 3 takes on December 23rd that year, the day just before we left Key West. And 3 takes. Jimmy Merle, the Steadicam operator, got all 3 takes perfectly, and that was what you see on the movie.
Harry, I have to stop
Yes.
Harry here. Eddie, I have to stop Harry here. This is where he's having a senior moment.
I definitely do. I can't remember yesterday.
The senior moment is going to be your brilliant gun, Jeff's work of all the work we did. You have to remember now. Here's the flashback. When the scene happens on DVD, press pause immediately, and the third person that came in was me. Again, I was the production manager with a big curly black afro, and we did it 3 times in Key West the night before Christmas.
You were directing the unit.
You were directing the unit.
That's right.
Right, we never got the muzzle flash, Eddie, because the frame of the camera was, remember, these were not digital; these were real film. So it would go like this and flash, bun. So Jim would wait for the dailies, and it didn't work. When we came back to LA, we rebuilt that building, the Caribbean compound building, because we had to sink the bomb into the ground again. We never finished. We had to leave because it was December 23rd, and we promised the crew that we would have them home for Christmas. So we got everyone on a plane and said, rebuild it. When we came back to LA and redid it, Harry set me up with a little mechanism on my thumb with stunts that I would pull the mechanism and the squibs would go off. And Jeff had me set up with all these blood packets and everything on me. So when I ran in and the machine gun came down the stairs, Jim would clap his hands like the gun, and all I had to do was pull the pin. But when I pulled the pin, I panicked, manager, and I laid down, and the blood went everywhere. He said, "You're bad words," and made me set up and do it again. They had to re-rig it. But that whole thing was about the muzzle flash had to be caught as the camera, because that was pre-digital effects. It had to be really happening, real fire, real muzzle flash caught on film. Nowadays, they just throw the gun down the stairs and do the sound and the fire because of the effects and the concerns of the actual, the squib coming out of the gun.
That's right. Good great time. Great memory.
Yep.
Give us one of the world, and that was
one of the very memorable. One of the very memorable shots in True Lies was that machine gun firing, because that was all practical. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I have several funny stories. I'll tell a couple of them, and then we can move on. The first one is that meeting Jamie Lee Curtis. I get a phone call from her, and she says, "Hi, is this Jeff Dawn?" "Yes, this is Jamie Lee Curtis. I really, really want to be beautiful in this, Jeff. I want this just be as beautiful as I've ever been." And I said, "Well, Miss Curtis, of course, we're gonna between makeup, hair, wardrobe, the cinematographer, we're gonna make you look great." And she did. She looked fantastic in that. Cut to, we have a meeting where we're all meeting here the first time. It's James Cameron. It's our DP, Russell Carpenter, myself, our hairdresser, Peter Tothball, and we're meeting with her in Jim's office. And she says, she stands up, we're all sitting down, being very polite, and she stands up and says, "All right, guys, you're going to be seeing me pretty much naked in this. I want everyone to know what we're dealing with." She strips all of her clothing off except for a G-string. She's standing there buck-ass naked except for a little tiny G-string. And she slowly stands there like this and turns around and goes, here you go. This is what we're dealing with. All right. I want to look good in this. This is what's underneath the bra and the panties. And we're all kind of looking like, yeah, okay. I'm trying to act professional here. I'm trying to act like this happens every day in my life because Jamie has a gorgeous physique. And she was just so comfortable with herself. It was wonderful. She would torture some of the other people. We had a guy named Uzi on the film, I believe. Wasn't Uzi was on our film, and
Who's he got?
she would come up to him, and she would like get her up real high, and she'd kind of almost stick it in his face because Uzi is from the Middle East, is Middle Eastern, and we're all standing around watching this, and she'd almost stick her boobs in his face and go, Uzi, is this too much? You know, do you think these are too much? And he's like this close to it. Oh, ma'am, oh my, and we're all cracking up because this is not normal in his country. This is a typical day for Jamie Lee. So that was Jamie Lee, and I want to get to Charlton Heston for a second too. Um, I had never worked with him. I never met him. Of course, he was a god in Hollywood. I was raised with him, like as we all were, and I had a concept for him. I read today that he had pink eye, so they put a patch on him. That's not what happened. I wanted him to look like I called it when I talked to Jim. I said I want him to look like like an unlucky Norman Schwarzkopf. We've all seen him with his hair the way he has it, you know, and everyone knows that he wore a toupee for years of his life. His whole life, basically, he wore a toupee. And I wanted him to wear a buzz cut, to be really buzzed like Norman Schwarzkopf, and with a big old scar and a patch over it. Make him look like a badass mofo. And Jim loved the idea. So then I called Mr. Heston, and luckily he knew my father, he knew my grandfather because they were in the business for years and decades. And he said, "Great, I love the idea. I want my guy to make the hairpiece for it." And we tested it with a big scar on the eye patch, and it turned out really well. And quite happy the way that whole thing turned out. And then one last story about Charlton Heston. We're doing his scene where he's talking about, you know, you better hurry up or somebody's going to park a car in front of the White House and blow it up. And he keeps screwing his lines up. Okay. Finally, we get in there on a close up. We're in a really tight close up, and it's a long monologue, and he nails it. He nails it. And afterwards, I'm standing right there, and Jim comes over to him and goes, Mr. Heston, you did that on purpose, didn't you? He said, hey, kid, you know what? You've been in the business as long as I am. You know when to screw up your lines, so they have to stay in the close up the whole time.
Wow.
Brilliant. He schooled James Cameron.
So can I add something from my memory of Terminator 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's one of those moments that I take care of the weapons, you know, control and restrict the weapons. And so when I go to the set, I don't eat, I don't drink, I don't, you know, so I don't have to go to the restroom. And when the company break for lunch, we were in Fremont doing the Cyberdyne building. So I'm in there, I'm sitting on the gun box during lunch, and Jim trying to shoot me out of the set. Say, go lunch. I said, no, sir, I can't. It's a legal requirement. So he waited till everybody cleared the set, and quietly, he goes set up the shot. He look at different angle. He figure things out. So lunch is over. Michael Haney, am I right, Scott? Michael Haney, yeah.
Yep.
And the DP, which is Adam Greenberg, will come back, and Jim will have a quick conversation with him with the next shot set up and things. Then he goes back to his trailer, having lunch and having meeting with Stephanie Austin and BJ Rack and you. You know, the time is well utilized, not a wasted moment. So the crew is back, set up the shot, the lighting, the camera, rehearse everything. And he comes back and he's ready to shoot. It's very efficient, you know, good time management, and very few people does that. And I learned a lot.
I'm sure to this day he still does that down in New Zealand and everything. And you both know that Michael Haney passed away. And if you didn't know that, he passed away 2 years ago.
I did not know that.
He had ALS, so he he went down the slope and
As Adam Greenberg died also, not from that.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
no.
Yeah, a bunch of guys passed away. It's been a long time.
It has been there. We're losing them.
Yeah.
Hey Harry, where are you? That background is
I
filled
can't-
with black dots.
I
I'm trying to think
I
of-
can't turn
in
the other way.
Morocco?
I'll be in trouble.
Are you in Morocco? Where are you working on a film now?
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
Okay, yeah. It looks like you're in a desertic land. That's all. You got better bandwidth than I do, but it looks like you're somewhere. Jeff, you look like you're in a power garage. You're set up-
Yeah, I'm prepping a film. I'm in my storage area up in Oregon, where I live,
Nice.
and I'm prepping a film I leave for in about a week.
I told Eddie that I think I'm the exciting one. Stephanie and I both moved up to the Solvang area of California. above
Oh,
Santa
lovely.
Nice.
And I've been here for 10 years and completely retired. Other than I did, I said, well, if you're going to Korea and you need someone to just talk about Korea, I was there on Avengers and Black Panther. I'll go as a consultant, but I won't go as a production manager. And so I went there and did 3 weeks in Korea. It was fantastic. And this is where I am, retired, enjoying retirement.
Lovely. I retired 3 years ago, but I keep saying yes because and you guys can probably relate to this. And you spend your whole career wanting to do $100 million films, $200 million films. Oh yeah, I want to do tentpole films. I want to be one of the big guys. And then you do it for a few years, and you start to crave the early days. When you just kind of run and gun. Everybody knows everybody. At the end of the day, you can pick up some grip equipment, and nobody from a union yells at you. So I've been doing like $5 to $10 million films now for the last 3 years, and loving it.
Yep, I hear you.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I hear you. It's hard to say no, as Eddie will probably know from others he's spoken to, and he seems young enough that he may not have seen the dark side of the fact that when you're in this business, you sort of want to go out on the gurney on the set. Nobody sort of really wants to go out sitting in a rocking chair at
Yeah,
home.
that's a horrible truth, but it is a truth.
We never learned to play golf, and fishing, and
Yeah.
fly an airplane, and none of us really want any of those things when we're working. So then when we stop working, we don't really have a plan, and we just sort of relax.
Yep. Well, we're also used to this being a 30-year continuous plane crash. That energy, the disaster around every corner, the adventure of it. That's what I still say. It's the adventure. That's why I'm into this, because I love new places, new people, and we've all lived so many lifetimes. By the time I was 30, I'd lived 2 or 3 lifetimes with the travel and things I'd done and people that I've met. So that's addictive. That this kind of we're a bunch of gypsies, and once you get used to that traveling circus, it's hard to get off that bandwagon.
It's also your family, and so you feel like your whole family's missing and gone, and you really only get to see your other family Christmas, New Year's, but your real family of 400 people that you travel with. You sleep in the hotel, you get up, you have breakfast.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure Eddie would like to rope us back into True Lies, but the problem is the 3 of us spent time in that world for the better part of a year and a half, almost 2 years, doing what doesn't sound to the general public like the kind of stuff they talk about with Terminator, and when they talk about visual effects and they talk about machine guns. When you look at True Lies and you watch it again, frame by frame, as an audience who wants to understand the real magic of cinema, what happens behind the camera, you will be mind-boggled at what that man, James Cameron, asked of us to create for him, and how we were able to do that for him. It starts on day one, and it never stops. And his ability, through Stephanie, my wife, and because we were married, trusted me. So you have silly things like when they walk into the Omega sector, that symbol on the ground, I did with Excel on my computer, and then they created a gigantic floor thing. I was like, oh my God, that's mine. That's just from Excel. You could do that on Excel back in the day. And Peter Lamont, the production designer, came off of many, many, many of the Bond films. We brought them over here, and they were working on the film, trying to pull it together. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to have a baby. And because he was going to have a baby, Michael Haney, who we just talked about, had a schedule, made sense, start here, go there, and we were going to start, and the winter was coming, and we needed to be in Rhode Island for the snow and Squaw Valley for the snow. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was having a baby. And so the only obstetrician that Maria really liked was in LA. So we started filming in Santa Clarita. And the Santa Clarita studio, to bring the circle back to Harry Lou, was a set in the script that James Cameron wrote that says Arnold walks into the bathroom looking for the little terrorist and sees him in the mirror and fights with him at the urinal. Literally, the army came over the hill 1/8 of a page. So you schedule that for an hour, maybe 2 hours. Jim got there on Friday night and was looking at the set from Monday and said, whoa, wait a second. Arnold walks in, but he's going to look through like 10 stalls. We only built one. He's going to look through 10 stalls. He's going to fight him at the urinal. They're going to shoot the guns. There's going to be a guy in the last toilet, and that's going to be the big joke at the. None of that was in the script. Nothing. So the whole weekend, like 24 hours, Saturday and Sunday, they built a brand new set. And when Jim came on Monday morning, that's what he shot. That's what he wanted. But it was his idea, and he would yell at people like, well, I was thinking about it. Why didn't you know it? And so you have to read his mind. These two guys that you're looking at here spent years learning how to read his mind. And I was just learning it for the first time. And it was a lot of putting out fires and calling the Army Corps of Engineers to build the bridge that we did the stunt sequence in Florida. But your audience will only, the rest of the world saw a limousine going down a bridge, Jamie Lee coming out with a helicopter, and they're, oh, that was a cool stunt. But for us, that was the better part of a year to work that out, because the remote control for that limousine we did here in Apple Valley, California. And whenever the guys were using their remote controls, the limo would turn left, turn right, or do crazy things. So we had to all the radios had to be turned off on the entire set while you're filming, which is exciting at best when you can't cue anyone, and the Harriers and all the rest. I mean, it just goes on forever. And the talk can be for days from a management side. Jeff, on the other side, was dealing with hundreds of people, and but it wasn't like a zombie movie with blood and guts. It was like people who always had to be in continuity looking great. And Harry was creating all this weaponry for these people and doing the stuff that, Tom Arnold and the purse with the wireless control in the bottom and things like that, and the explosion inside. Those things they're kind of, now 35 years later, easy to talk about. But at the time, it was a lot of what?
Yeah, you're inventing it as you go.
Yeah, it was a lot. That's what we did. Jeff got it right there. Stephanie used to say, we go in the morning and we reinvent the square wheel. Because it's like we come up with the hardest way to do anything.
I remember our production meeting, and Jim had this chalkboard, and he's designing and showing us the building in Miami that we're going to film in. And it's just this monolith building of many stories high. And he designs this wedding cake. He called it a wedding cake, where it's these different platforms all the way up to the very top. And this is all built maybe 20, 30 feet up, and platforms where you can put cameras and you can put cranes and things on each one of these. The very top, you have a hydraulic motion control device attached to our real Harrier. So all of this is on top of each other until you finally get the actual working Harrier at the top that can be hydraulically moved around like this, with all of these filming platforms that can look up at it like this from all the way around. And he designed that. We built it. It worked fantastic. The building itself, I went down into the different floors, and Scott, you'll know this, many didn't. The first few floors of that building, with all of this contraption, the crane, the Harrier, the crew, all the camera equipment, can't handle the weight. So they had to go down through the next few floors and put these giant posts up from ceiling to floor that would brace that ceiling. And then they would go down to the next floor under that and do that. So the top few floors had these stilts holding up the ceiling so that the many tons that we piled on top wouldn't just collapse the building. God, this is expensive.
You know what Stephanie and I used to say, it was expensive, but if we weren't there, it could have been a lot more expensive.
It's a good point. No, I remember that. You were very.
Jeff's talking about the wedding cake is that Stephanie, Jim, and I flew down there with a helicopter to find a rooftop. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to take his learning experience from Terminator 2 and the fact that George Lucas had created an entire facility in Northern California to support the work he was doing and the post-production visual effects, which were worth millions and millions of dollars to his company. It's a profitable business. So Jim wanted to get into that business, and Digital Domain was created to do that. Part of that process was to find a rooftop in Florida where we could put our mock-up Harrier, full-scale mock-up Harrier. So we went to the Marine base with full support of the government and created a mock-up with Pendleton was his name, who made a mock-up of the Harrier. We brought the Harrier to Miami, but then we wanted to put it on a motion base. First, we just wanted to put it. We're just going to put it up on the roof and shoot it, go around and shoot it. But then Jim said, oh, no, it's got to move. And so we had to create a gimbal, and the gimbal was created by a company for the first time for that weight, that size, and brought up to the 20th story of the building. Ultimately, those guys went on to do all the gimbal work for Steven Spielberg for his dinosaur movies forever. They're still doing all the motion-based stuff that creates that because they're not little, they're gigantic. So we went up there with the Harrier, and that's where, while the Harrier was up there, to get it up there, we needed to use that giant crane. Once the crane was there, Jim said, oh, we should shoot something on the crane. And that's the scene with Eliza Dushku climbing out on the arm. But everything was, like Jeff says, was being learned as we grew. And the weight that we asked the building, which was an insurance company, can we film on your building? And they said, sure. We said, it's a couple of tons. And then the steel was the grid work. I have pictures of it. I don't know how to link them up to this image. I changed my face for that because I have perfect pictures. But the steel went up to 100 tons. And the 100 tons needed ceiling jacks, they're called. And first they were every 10 feet. By the time we were done, they were like every 3.5 to 4 feet. So you had to weave your way around a floor to get to the offices where Jeff had makeup and wardrobe and Harry had his props and guns. So you had to weave your way. And one floor became 2 floors, became 3 floors. And a young gentleman came to me and said, can I work on your movie? I want to work be a production assistant. And he was probably about 40 at the time. I'm used to 19-year-olds, and his name was Charles Lee. And Charles Lee handed me a resume that said he had worked for I M Pei doing gigantic building architecture. I said, well, you've got to meet my production designer because we're doing all these floor jacks and ceiling jacks and this structural thing. And this crane could fall off the building in Miami. And we got, it's dangerous stuff. So he got involved in that. Ultimately, he went on to be the art director and production design team on Titanic for Jim. But he was the guy who helped create that environment. And it just goes on, Eddie. We hired a crew from Italy. They were Americans. They had worked in Italy. What's that snow picture, Jeff? Maybe you remember that Rennie Harlan did?
Yeah, I did it. Cliffhanger. I was the department head on it.
We always move. We have a lot of mixed circles here. But Cliffhanger, the team from Cliffhanger came to do the rigging at the top of a 20-story building that Jeff was describing and Harry described. What happened is they would have the crane operator swing the arm out around the building. Now, those cranes are bigger than the buildings. Swing the arm, and then they would make believe they fell off because they're all high wire guys. And it was all during prep. There was no crew there. They would go, they'd fall 20 stories and then stop themselves on the rope while this poor old guy was operating the crane. He would call us in LA and say, I'm quitting, I'm done, these guys have to go. But that was the fun we had. We definitely had a good time on that movie. Every location has something interesting that I can tell you about it.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys all brought very special things to it. We had the guns that we fired with Harry down at the Caribbean compound when we were doing the fire sequence was amazing because they had to do all those bullet hits in the water. It was amazing because we had gas that Scotty Fisher and Tom Fisher were bubbling gas, natural gas was bubbling up under the water that they were going to light on fire so it looked like Peter Kent another part of Jeff's brilliant work of decades. But Peter Kent, who they made look like Arnold on so many movies, but Peter Kent would put on his prosthesis and he would get there and then jump in the water and do the sequence. And Harry Lou had to make all these machine gun hits in that water. Oh my God, it was incredible. And we're doing this stuff at like 4 o'clock in the morning when you're making believe that you had a good day's sleep before you had to go to work.
Yeah.
So, and then we had helicopters that came landing on top of us while we had a dolly underneath it in that same Caribbean compound. We were crazy. We were a crazy bunch. Crazy bunch.
That
Yeah,
was the
we were-
morning at 8 o'clock on 23rd December.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, we finished off. We finished when the sun came up, the scene where all the helicopters are coming in. And, Arnold has saved the day finally. The place is in smoldering ruins. That was, I think, on the 23rd.
Yeah,
We worked all night. And then we went to the airport and traveled home.
Is it weird, just to jump in here really quickly, is it weird to finish a film, right? So it's cut. All right, everything's done. Now all that work you put in, now it's up to, I assume, the editor. Cameron is probably helping edit, but you move on and he now stays behind and assembles everything. Is that a weird thing to kind of let go of it and move on, but know that it's still being worked on, even though you're not a part of it?
Wall. The answer to your question, they're lying if they don't tell you. It's like hitting a wall at 90 miles an hour. For most of them, for guys like Harry and Jeff, look, here they are. They're still working on projects. So what happens is the train is going at 90 miles an hour and they just jump from one car to another car.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Scott,
they've got a foot already on the other train. Their
right.
legs are spreading apart the two trains. And then it's like, let go of one and grab the other. And prep is done. Stephanie and I have always sort of ended one, and then you wait for the next one because producers don't have the opportunity, as does a lot of the technical crew, to get prep one, shoot one, wrap one, prep one, shoot one, wrap one.
Yeah, exactly. So you're on a 2-3.
Yeah. Arnold's next movie. So you prep one, shoot one, wrap one, prep one, shoot one, wrap one, until you decide to say no. I mean, it's totally in your court.
Yeah, I mean, prep for us, prep for me is 1 to 4 weeks. Prep for you, Scott, is 6 months.
A year.
A year. Yeah. And then post, they say wrap and I'm done the next day.
And he's already prepping his next movie at the end of our film.
Yeah.
Harry is working on guns and it's not considered cheating when you're being paid by one.
We may be wrapped, but forever emotionally attached to that project.
That's for sure. Yeah.
That's why when the question comes up, how did I remember 36 years ago?
Right.
I remember.
You do.
Emotionally attached.
And like this, you remember it.
And I'm sure you guys are. You guys are asked often about working with James Cameron. I know I am. When I first worked with him on Terminator 1, he was a no-name, a nobody, and now he's a god of Hollywood.
Right.
And people are constantly asking me questions about working with Jim.
Yeah, same thing happened, Jeff, when I did that live video that came up here. I felt went really well, and it was all talking about the movie and the making, the things that we're talking about like now. But toward the end, they brought in 2 or 3 other people, and I couldn't see them. They weren't. It wasn't. I was being recorded, but I wasn't on camera. And so the other people that were asking questions, I think they were looking for the dark side of Jim and the dark side of Arnold.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I just wasn't. I was totally prepared. I mean, I spent years doing it. We still get a Christmas card and flowers. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think that's part of their business or their process. And if they want to,
I sense that with these people also. And I do a lot of these podcasts and documentaries and such. And it's like people ask me, "Oh, Jeff, you should write a book." I said, "No, because no one wants to hear what I'm willing to write. They want to hear who slept with whom, who was an asshole, who was a bitch, who was doing drugs, who was a horrible person." And that's not. If I had nothing to lose, I don't care about my career anymore because it's behind me. But it's not who I am, and people want to hear that. And that's I'm not going to write a book about all the cool things that people have done because that's wonderful, but people don't want to hear that for some reason. They want to hear the dirt, and that's just not my style.
I think it's in cinema, if you go through the majority of the filmmakers back to Charlie Chaplin, if you go to all these folks, everybody has a closet, and
Oh yeah.
everybody has something in their past, the secret in their past, but that has nothing to do with the creative process of making entertainment, which is what we really choose to do. And like, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about money on the set. Nobody asks who's richer than who's got
Yep.
how many cows,
Mhm.
what church they go to, where they. No, we're making film, and that's our first love.
Mhm.
We get up in the morning, we go to bed at night, and then when we're sitting with our friends, we can talk crap on the weekends. But I used to call it from roll to rap, and rap to roll. So from rap to roll, you can do whatever you want to do. From
Yep.
roll to rap, we're filmmakers, and that's our only focus is product. And Jim Cameron always kept all of us on the top of our top game. And if you weren't on your top game, I think Harry can tell you that there was a gun guy, the prop master on True Lies, that Jim picked at him until his head exploded. And I had to go. I can't remember his name, and it doesn't matter. But if you remember, Harry, he was doing weapons before you were brought in, I think, or maybe with you. But he was like our weapon guy on the set. And Jim just didn't like, he wasn't prepared. He just wasn't thinking. He really wasn't. As outsiders looking in, production managers saying, I sort of agree with Jim's complaints. I'm not really liking. He's not just being cruel for no reason. But
exactly.
I used to say, Jim, he's got guns. His job is to bring guns to the set. You must pick on him all the time. Can you pick on somebody else, please? And ultimately, we terminated him with extreme prejudice, as we like to say.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room in a James Cameron film. I tell people that you're at the best you've ever been when you're done with a James Cameron film, because he's not difficult to work with, long as you're as possibly prepared as you can be. And if he knows you've done your job that way, he loves it. He loves working with the military because they're so efficient that way. So if you're ready to come to the table and live and die his project, he's going to love you. Oh, a quick story about Jim's memory, and you'll remember this as I get into it, Scott. We're filming back in Los Angeles. It's nighttime. We're on one of the studio lots where there's a swimming pool. And in the scene, it's Art Malik, our main bad guy. He's on the motorcycle, and it's the scene where supposedly he jumps off of the building, flies through the air, and lands in a swimming pool on another building that's across the street. That's when Arnold and the horse is about to do it, and the horse stops him. And so we had to do the shot where we have the stuntman fly up in the air on a jump and then land right in this swimming pool, the double that looks like him. I suddenly get a radio call in the makeup trailer saying, "Jeff, to the set immediately, please." And I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Art Malik's got something in his eye." Well, we have a medic for that usually, but sometimes the makeup artist steps in and takes a look or uses some eye drops. So, okay. So I go down to the set. Now, it's very cold. It's night. I have several layers of jackets on. I have a waistband with all my equipment. I have a walkie-talkie, which is mine. I have my cell phone. Back then, we had beepers. And I walk up to the set, and I see Art Malik holding his eye like this next to the pool. And I'm like, oh, shit. Art, you okay, buddy? What's going on? And with that, I get thrown into the water. What the hell was that? So I pop out of the water. Now I'm weighing, an extra 100 pounds with all the water and all my gear, and everything's destroyed now. And I look up, and James Cameron's standing at the edge of the pool saying, "That's payback, Don. It took me years to learn that you were the one that threw me in the pool on the Terminator rap party." We all were crazy and drunk back then. And that's payback. So I get out of the pool, right? And I go after Jim. And people are standing around the pool. There's 100 crew standing over their mouths open going, what the hell is going on? We've got the makeup department head going after the James Cameron. And people were intimidated by Jim. And I grab a hold of Jim, and he has a bomber jacket on. And I'm pulling him back to the pool. I'm going to take him in with me, right? And he's trying to get out of the jacket. And finally, he gets out of the jacket. He falls onto the concrete. We thought he broke his elbow at first. I go back into the pool with his jacket on, okay, or with his jacket in hand. I climb out of the pool. We shake hands, we hug, we laugh, and I turn to everybody and go, "Folks, for you, those who don't know that, what happened? This is payback. Now it's going to be my turn to draw first blood next time." And then the next day, I go into Scott's office, and I have my walkie, I have my phone, I have all my stuff in this wet bag, and go, "You guys just bought all those things." So Jim has a memory. He likes to pay back.
That's awesome. Why? I wanted to make sure I asked this question with you three gentlemen here. Why do you think? Because I know there's potential reasons. Why do you think this never spawned a sequel?
Why
Well,
it never spawned a sequel? They can speak to me because it's like it's aligning the stars. It's like aligning the stars for a launch on Artemis 2. You know, it's like you got to go, you got to loop around Earth 3 times, then come around the moon, then come back, then land. Every time we do it, it's nothing short of a miracle. So that's why somebody a long time ago created Miracle Productions, because it's nothing short of a miracle. So why it never spawned one would mean that after Jim finished writing the story, you want him to write another one? To him, he was already in his mind working on Titanic. I mean, he told us the story of Titanic when we were doing the snow scene, when just before they go, when Arnold comes out, I think, out of the water in Rhode Island, and then he comes down and skis down a mountain, and then he gets picked up in the van that Grant Heslov was now, the partner of George Clooney. Grant Heslov and Tom Arnold are driving the van. They drive off, but that was a big snow scene, and Jim hates snow and he hates skiing. So we prepped that thing for months with lighting and everything. And he came, he said, I don't really want to shoot this scene. It's got to go. But the night he told us that scene had to go, he took us all, Stephanie, BG, took us all, Ray Sankini, into his trailer and said, I'm working on this other thing. It's a story of Titanic. And so he told me Titanic from the beginning to the end. And then we went on Christmas, whatever, we finished it. And after that, he went on to it. And Stephanie and I didn't get to work on Titanic. One, I don't swim, so the idea doesn't really excite me. A sinking boat, it's going to be a lot of water work. I don't like water work. And production manager, like Jeff just said, someone's going to get thrown into deep water. I'm not interested. So we went off and did Rennie Harlan's Long Kiss Goodnight in the winter in the snow in Canada, which I love. So no problem. But I think what Jeff is speaking to is when they went down to Mexico and built these tanks, Jim is the kind of guy that said to everyone, the water has to be gin clear. The water has to be body temperature, because he had learned on the Abyss years and years earlier that if the water wasn't body temperature, 98.6, exactly, not 7, not 5, if it wasn't 98.6, you become hypothermic in a period of time. And he wanted the crew to be able to stay in those tanks when they were underwater working on Titanic for hours and hours and hours on end. And 98.6 is like being back in your mother's womb. I mean, you're there, you're fine, and you don't even notice it. You don't feel it on your skin because it's liquid gold. And so Jim built all these tanks and brought all these heaters, brought all these filters. And when we did Arnold's fire sequence, we had to create a gin clear pool for that. Jim is a very, very, very special person in his knowledge of what he needs for cinema, and then how it translates to what it ultimately becomes. But the answer to your first question, which is why wasn't a second one done? You would need Arnold, you would need Jamie, you would need Tom Arnold, because the whole story was about the funny Russian spies. And Jim would more or less have to write the story. And I would think in my mind, why would he want to? He would be bored.
I think you're right. It's missed its mark. There was a lot of talk for years about between Arnold. I heard it from Arnold. Sure. And Tom Arnold and Arnold are good friends to this day. And Tom Arnold would come around. And of course, Tom Arnold wants nothing more than that, because that was the highlight of his career.
Sure.
And Tom was a joy to work with. He's a real case because he's just so frantic all the time and manic. But a fun guy. And they were talking about doing that for years.
Yeah, Eddie, to your question, the only people that know the answer to that question are Arnold, Jamie, Tom Arnold, and Jim Cameron. You know, those are the people that know the answers. I don't think any one of them would have had any problem getting banked on a movie if they said, we have a movie. They have enough box office bank accounts at all the studios that anyone would have said, I'll go into business with you for $100 million, a couple $100 million. Let's do it. But they would have to want to do it. I don't think any of them really wanted to do it. They were all off doing other things with their lives.
Sure, and people know that when you attempt to do a James Cameron film without James Cameron, it doesn't go well.
That's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time.
What Jim taught us all, Eddie, so you know, it's really a simple thing. I'll never forget it. Jim taught us Jim's world of screenwriting is blah, blah, boom. Blah, blah, boom. And if you can memorize that and never forget it, blah, blah, boom, you will then go back and think of all of these directors that came from that mold doing action films. I don't have to give you any of their names. And whether their films did really well or really badly, they would do boom, boom, blah, boom, boom, blah, because they would write scripts that had explosions and car chases. You got to have the audience talk. You have to have your actors talking. That's his blah, blah. Blah, blah. They have to talk. There has to be a story. There have to be characters. And then you can blow something up. Then you can break a piece of glass. Then you can, like Jim says, when I see glass, I see squibs. You know, whenever he saw glass, he wanted to break it. In Washington, we were filming in a department store when we got to Washington, D.C., and it was a scene with Tom Arnold standing behind a pole and being shot at. And we were just going to film in the mall. So we got permission. I'm the production manager to film in the mall. But when we got there at 6 o'clock at night, Jim said, okay, let's have our little pre-production meeting. Okay, guys, I need squibs on everything you can see. I said, what do you mean everything you can see? I was standing there. That's like 20 or 30 like plate glass windows that have, you know, things behind them. And the owners aren't here because the clothing store, the shoe store, we told them they didn't have to be here. We were just going to film there. And then we're going to go outside and shoot behind the pole with heavy set Tom and the little, Jim says, of course not. Are you crazy? When I see glass, I see squibs. Let's blow it all up. So, of course, we blew everything up. And then I spent the majority of the night trying to get in touch with owners and let them know that we were going to put the boards up on their windows. And when they came to we're going to replace pretty much all the glass in this mall with sheet glass windows. Everything we did was cost effective, given that we had no prep for it to be any less expensive. Because Jim always came up with crazy ideas, but they were, you know, when you heard his idea, you didn't think he was crazy. Like, that's a cool idea. You know, it's hard to fight when he says,
it's hard to budget a James Cameron film because
it really is. It really is.
If you come in with an extra, you know, $50 million that you know it's going to end up going over,
never enough.
It's everyone will say, stop it. We're yanking that film.
And Stephanie had done Terminator 2 with these guys. I was just Stephanie plus one. So I would come to the parties and the dinners, but I wasn't working. I was doing television commercials. So Steph would work with them. So she came with knowledge. Now, knowledge is power. Stephanie's just getting ready to leave. Bye, my dear. So knowledge is, say hi to Jeff Dawn and Harry Lou.
Hello, darlings.
Hello.
Run.
Stephanie's running. But
great to hear your voices. Have fun.
Good hearing yours. Uh-oh. He started to get garbly on my end.
Yeah, same. Harry, are we holding you hostage? I don't want to be holding you hostage.
I want to thank you for inviting me, Jeff. It's so great seeing you after all this year. I do need to run back to the set.
Yes,
My apology, but it's an honor. It's been joyful to seeing old friends and talking about reminiscing the old times. Thank you so much.
A quick question for you that I think the audience will want to hear. I'm always amazed when I do big gunfire scenes of how many rounds we go through in a day. Do you remember, I mean, when we were firing all the fully automatics, you know, down in Florida simultaneously for multiple takes, how many blank rounds do you go through in one day on a big scene like that?
Average back in those days, you know, Jim is great. He doesn't do multiple takes. So we were into about maybe 15,000, 18,000 rounds a day.
1,000? 18,000?
Yeah,
It,
that was a little number for Jim, but the big shootout was actually in Fremont, the Cyberdyne, with the police
of
shooting up
course,
the
yeah, with a
in
minigun and
Arnold.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big day. We're averaging about 38 to 40,000 rounds,
Oh
if I
my God,
remember.
what was the minigun going through?
Uh, Stephanie asked me to tone it down. It found the original 6,000 round down to 3,000 rounds. You know, so I
Yeah,
was
so
shooting
that's
about.
50 rounds a second.
Yep.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
So,
Yeah.
but it gives you the effects. It shows the energy. It shows the muzzle flashes back at Arnold's face. It looks just fantastic, especially when you watch all the brass just falling down like
Mm-hmm.
waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, gentlemen, Scott, thank you. Great seeing you once again, Jeff.
You
Scott,
too,
Good seeing
Eddie,
you.
Harlan.
thanks for having me. We'll chat again. Cheers.
All right. Well,
Wow.
we're gonna go ahead, Jeff.
You got room for one more quick story?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Scott, you'll probably remember this. We're in DC, and it is supposedly Arnold chasing Art Malik. He's on the motorcycle, Arnold's on the horse. Arnold is a very good horseman and he did a lot of the work, but we also had stunt people for the stuff that can hurt you or kill you. And we had a guy named Jaco that was from Europe. He was a circus rider. He was a really accomplished horseback rider. And we had him in the full Arnold prosthetic double mask and a wig to make it look like Arnold. And he has to jump over a hedge at night and land with a horse in front of this fountain on concrete. Well, landing a horse on concrete, even when you have rubber shoes on it, can be very dangerous and slippery because the horse wants to slip out. And I had a little makeup removal kit with me that was for emergencies. And it came in handy that night. I had spoken with the first aid person and with our first AD, which I think was Aldrich Porter at the time. Because typically if somebody gets hurt on a set, everyone gets pushed away. You get the first AD, you get the medic, you get the stunt coordinator, a few people like that around. Everybody else gets pushed away. This guy came off the horse, landed face first on the concrete. I had told everybody if something goes down, I have medical training and I'm going to need to go with them to the hospital to get this prosthetic off. So I was right there at ground zero, and he was semi-conscious. His face had been hit hard, but he had this prosthetic, so it was hard to tell what the damage was. But there was cuts and bruises and blood. We put him in a ambulance, took him to the hospital, took him into the same exact room that Reagan had been brought into when he was shot in DC, which was interesting. And I'm standing there in my full gear to be working outdoors with gloves on, and everybody else is running around with their hospital outfits on. And I'm asking permission. Do I have permission to remove this? What do you use? I use, alcohol, this, that, and the other. Yes, please do so. So I carefully am sitting there as they're all working on him on the table, and he's semi-conscious at the time, and I'm trying to get this thing off him and finally get it off him before he goes off to X-rays and MRIs and all that. And he was fine after that, but that was an interesting time. And these things happen on sets. People get hurt. We had a lot of people hurt on True Lies, and you've got the best stunt people, the best safety people, and James Cameron's uber safe with all this stuff. But when you're pushing it to the limit with explosions and gunfire and shrapnel and all that, people go to the hospital. We didn't kill anybody, but we sent a few to the hospital.
Hmm.
Scott's thinking, "Oh, damn, I'm going to get sued now."
Yeah.
Aw. And I'm the guy out here in the boonies with 2 bars only, going through
Yeah.
my cell phone.
How is
No
this
internet.
happening? How is this happening? Well, I mean, I think the thing, like the takeaway of this is there's like any film that we've talked about on this podcast, there's a million stories and memories, and I loved just that's literally what I do with this podcast. I love assembling these panels and then sitting back and just listening
Mhm.
while everybody reminisces. Because when was the last time you saw Scott or Harry?
Oh, I probably saw Harry on a movie or two after that. I never saw Scott since then, so it's been 32 years.
There you go. And I also think back to the why there wasn't a sequel. I just wanted to see if anyone else had heard this. I had heard that the script that they were working on wouldn't have worked, according to Jamie Lee Curtis, in a post 9/11 world where terrorism is no longer funny.
Interesting. Well, I'm about to do a film where we're, let's just say the film I'm about to do is bringing back some of the True Lies.
Really?
Potential danger. Yes, not on that scale at all, but it's showing a clear and present danger in our world right now, as it was back then. As let's talk about it and not just do the woke thing and say let's all kumbaya and hug each other.
Well, I mean, I know there was that short-lived CBS series a couple of years ago. I don't know. Had you checked it out at all?
What was it? Was it True Lies?
It was called True Lies. Yeah.
I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, it was
That's terrible.
It was on CBS, and I think it was the same characters. Like they all have the same names, Harry Tasker and
Interesting.
whatnot, but it's not Arnold. Obviously, it's not. It's all different actors, and it got canceled after one season.
Ouch. Well, we see that happen. Back to the story real fast. It came from originally Bobby Shriver, Arnold's brother-in-law, the brother to Maria Shriver, his wife at the time, had brought this French film. It was called The Jackpot or something like that. And it was basically the same story. And he said, Arnold, this would be a perfect vehicle for you. So then Arnold took that to James Cameron, who agreed, and then rewrote it into True Lies. Hence the reason that Bobby Shriver is one of our executive producers, because he brought the whole project to both Arnold and James Cameron.
Yeah. Yep. It's The Jackpot is the translation. I think the French title is La Totale.
That's it. I kept reading that on the internet this morning going, I don't remember that being the name. La Totale.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if you're going to, when you edit this, I have a really cool photo of myself in the middle holding on to Jamie Lee Curtis with one hand in her full wardrobe and makeup and Tony Curtis in the other. They're right here. And I had just worked with Tony Curtis. Arnold had directed a movie of the week called Christmas in Connecticut. And Tony Curtis was the star of it. And what a joy of a human being he was. Just an amazing, he'd show up on the set in the morning and he would have his gloves on and an ascot on in his convertible. He was a movie star from the 50s, even though this was, what was it, in the 90s. And just a joy. And he'd come to the set and go, hey, folks, take a look at this hairpiece. I just started with a new guy and I love this. What do you think? I'm loving the way this hair looks on me. I mean, he was so open about it, So it was great to see him come and visit Jamie Lee. If you're interested in that photo, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that's great. Okay, here he is. Here is Scott.
Yay, Scott, you're back.
I had to switch over to my wife's computer.
Aha.
The background will change and the lighting will get a little bit better because now the outside light is on the inside face.
Well, we were just reminiscing and talking about Jeff's upcoming work here, but we're gonna round this out. I just wanted to wait to make sure I could get you in here for the end. So, what is Scott? What is the legacy of True Lies for you? Where does it fall in your filmography?
Most important project of my life.
Wow.
I think for me, it would be, I had, 10 or 15 years before it, started on King Kong, and I had 10 or 15 years after it, 20 years after it. I printed out my resumes because because what if they asked me, what have I done since? I went, oh my God, I've done a lot since. But after True Lies, but it really was one of the most important experiences of my life because I was transitioning from television commercials to feature films.
And Jeff, same question for you. Legacy of the film.
I'm fortunate because I've done a bunch of films with Jim. And it's wherever I go, I almost sense that crew members will be talking as I walk in the room going, that guy's worked with James Cameron a lot. I go up to an actor or up to a director and say, when I was with Jim, you know, you got to be careful so you're not dropping names, but people know that I've done quite a few films with him, so it's not like it's coming out of nowhere. And people have so much respect for him for all the right reasons. You are the best you've ever been. You'd better be prepared. People don't quit James Cameron films. When Jim yells at you in front of 100 people, it's because you have screwed up. We all screw up, and we get very good at covering it. You know, if Scott came to me, hey, Jeff, where's such and such? Oh, yeah, I'll get it to you in just a minute. And thinking, oh, shit, I didn't even think about that. Jim will bust you in a heartbeat because he's so smart. And he knows everybody's job as well as you do. And it's embarrassing, but damn it, you fail once and you never fail at that again. So you get blown up a lot on a James Cameron film, but you learn where the mines are buried and you don't ever get blown up again. So that has helped me immensely in my career. I loved it because it was a big film that took us all over the country in different environments. And it just, it's one of those films that people met. If you mention True Lies, people spin their head and go, I love that film. That was a really good film.
Yeah, to this day. To this day.
To this
30
day.
years later,
You know,
I still love it.
Yeah, it's like it's surprising. You mentioned Terminator 2, and everybody talks about that because it's such a big film.
Sure.
Mention True Lies, and it's like you jog somebody's memory that there was this movie and they really enjoyed it years ago. You know, so it was a fun one. It was another big one. I'm fortunate to have, like Scott, I was probably in the business 15 years before that, and then I'm still in the business 30 years later. But I'll tell you, I use stuff that I learned on True Lies every day when I'm working.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you both putting aside time. Also, Harry as well. I didn't get to ask him, so I'm gonna send him this question because he kind of exited pretty quickly. But Jeff, I've asked this before because you've been on before. But Scott, what is your all-time favorite James Cameron film? It doesn't have to be True Lies, but if it is, just make
I
sure
would think my all-time favorite, I really do like Terminator 2. That was my favorite movie.
That's your favorite?
And I like The Abyss. I like The Abyss, and I like Terminator 2 a lot.
Now, out of those
I like the
two,
music,
you can only
I
have
like
one.
everything. But I would say my favorite would be T2.
T2. All righty. And Jeff, I believe your answer is always the Terminator, right?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back between T2 and T1, but you wouldn't have T2 without T1. T1 was a much bolder experiment and chance, you know? So I'm going to stick with T1.
It was really a pleasure talking to you for sure, Eddie.
Yes, thank you.
Nice seeing you, Jeff.
Good seeing you too, Scott.
And stick around. We'll do a formal goodbye. I'm just going to end the recording now.
Okay.
Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this real fun, just reminiscing and memory lane of True Lies with the talents that worked on the film. Thank you for watching and listening. And like I always say, go watch a Cameron film.